1,000 resumes, 5 top candidates.
Our ability to ask the question is more powerful now than it is for our ability to have the answer.
If AI is going to do something for me, then why should I be trying to do it better? Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of Tier 4 Tech Talks. I'm your co-host, Jonathan Palombo, Marketing Communications Manager here at Tier 4 Group. I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Robert Bouchard, Chief Digital Officer at Tier 4 Group. Rob, how you doing, man?
I'm great, John. Great to be here with you for episode 5.
I can't believe it's been 5 episodes already. Where does the time go?
Well, we've been producing.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Yeah. But hey, if you're listening, we just want to, first of all, thank you for joining in. We want to encourage you to hit that subscribe button so we can keep producing awesome content like this. We do it for you. We do it for our teammates, for the industry. We're happy to do it. So if you haven't already, please subscribe. And we thank you for the support.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. So the last couple episodes, we've been talking a lot about AI. 2 episodes ago, we talked about the AI adoption cliff and why most AI pilots don't survive the long run. And also, we talked about how tab switching and broken AI workflows is killing recruiter productivity. And today, we're continuing the conversation, but this time, we're taking it at a different angle. We're going to be talking about architecture over features. And what we're really diving into here is AI inside the ATS, or what is known as the applicant tracking system.
Yep.
And it's either AI or it doesn't count.
That's right.
Okay. And here's the thing, though. If you're listening to this and you're like, well, I don't have an applicant tracking system or we don't use them like that. Well, listen, this is a conversation that applies beyond that. It is good for any real CRM or source of truth or really any kind of platform that really keeps all of your data in one place.
That's right.
So we want to keep that in mind. You know, obviously we're going to be referring to ATS a lot, but hey, this goes for any single source of truth where all of your data lives. We want clean data and we want our AI to do what it's supposed to do in these systems.
Yeah, that's right. Bad data is bad AI.
Yeah.
Bad data is bad reporting. So it's both.
Yeah. So the first thing that I really want to jump in with you, Rob, is, you know, AI promises us a lot of speed.
Yep.
I think that's the end goal, is to get time back and to eliminate administrative tasks, and that AI becomes an amplifier.
Right.
And empowers us to do more with less. But there's a crack in reality, and it usually lives outside of your reality, because the truth is, if the architecture is not there to back it up properly, AI falls apart.
That's right.
So talk to us a little bit about that speed versus quality trade-off and why you need strong architecture behind AI workflows.
Well, first of all, speed without system alignment creates noise, not outcomes. As an agency, a talent acquisition firm, Workforce Management Solutions, our end result is the outcome, identifying top talent for our clients, making matches for our candidates with our clients. But the reality for us is that data still has to live inside of our systems. And so if any AI that you have is living outside of the ATS, then it lives outside of your reality. And that can create complexity. It can create confusion. It also creates gaps in the communication chain. And so the value is not about what it can do. It's more about what can your systems absorb. And when we think about that, those systems, it's not just a technical reference. Your systems can also be your people too. And we've talked about that a good bit with the adoption cliff. We've also talked about it with the constant tab switching, the context switching, and how that creates change, and it's created technology fatigue. But disconnected AI doesn't accelerate hiring. It fragments it. And we've talked a ton about noise over the last few episodes. But when we start to look at what promises AI has brought to us, and you alluded to this a little bit earlier, the promise of speed. And when we look at, well, like we talked about in the constant tab switching, it actually has created more work in a lot of scenarios for employees.
Yeah.
And this do more with less concept that we've heard a lot over the last 18 months.
Every marketer knows it.
Every marketer knows it. Use AI to do that. Well, okay, but you can. But then is it quality? Is it producing the quality outcome that you are ideally looking for? And when we backtrack on why that matters, the overall architecture of getting it right. So that's your system, your tech stack, your training, your people, your process, all of those things. What we want to do is create a reality. that lives inside of our ecosystem, inside of our aquarium, as we call it, that reality is about predicting outcomes.
And let's just clarify real quick architecture. How are you defining that in this context?
Yeah, so I think about architecture in terms of the tools and the technology that you have in place that are not just front end solutions, but all of your environment. So everything from the candidate lifecycle journey, we go from
Mhm.
sourcing to onboarding, right? Literally from the beginning to the end, and we've talked about it, so 30 plus steps in that process.
Yep.
Each of those steps is its own system.
Hmm.
And within that system is architecture on how that step operates.
Mm.
And when we think about the decision workflows that come off of those systems, there is then opportunity within that workflow for friction, for delaying, and for margin of error. And so when we think about architecture, we have to think about those systems and then the workflows that associate with each of those systems and how they interact with each other. What can be automated, what requires human in the loop.
Yeah, and I think ultimately architecture is what's going to determine whether your AI
Mhm.
is friction or a multiplier.
Right. And we want it to be a multiplier.
Of course. Of course.
Mm.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we think that speed or just doing something faster is the outcome we're looking for. But
Right.
ultimately, I think it's more so enhanced decision making
It is.
and it's improved acceptance rates and
Yeah.
all of these other things that it's going to support. But
Mm.
I think we have sometimes the wrong reality or
Yes.
idea of what that's supposed to look like.
Well, an AI should not be decision authority.
True.
It should be decision support.
Yeah. Reduce time to decision,
Mm.
reduce, enhance decisions, but not just speed.
You cannot give up quality for the sake of speed. If you're using technology, if you're adding more people into your team, quality cannot be let up. You cannot let up on quality for sake of speed.
Well, I think we need to get away from speed so much as the primary outcome, and it needs to be angled more towards business impact.
I agree. It still matters
It
though.
still matters.
Hmm.
It still matters.
Yep.
So, yeah, and then as an example, especially in our industry, when you think about some maybe AI sources, say like 200 candidates, but let's say that out of those 200 candidates, a recruiter still gets 20, manually looks through 20, and then goes through others.
Mm.
That didn't necessarily improve the process. It may have accidentally created more work because there's manual
Mhm.
reconciliation that the recruiter has to do once they've received those candidates
Yeah.
through sourcing.
We still want our recruiters talking to the most qualified candidates.
Hmm.
And that's where things get interesting because when you use automation and intelligence for that, you have to be very careful. Governance matters, laws matter. Each state has its own regulations now in your effective use of AI. But really, we want to make sure that we are using that technology on the front in the most non biased manner possible to evaluate a candidate based on skills.
Hmm.
And that's a challenge. It is a challenge when we look at skills based hiring, we look at workforce management solutions and what the new way of work is going to look like. We need to evaluate thousands of inbound and also outbound candidates for opportunities. Who are the most qualified? Who are the
Hmm.
best fits? And at the end, it comes back to those outcomes because those ones that are the most qualified, that are the best fits, generally are the ones that are going to have a likelihood of tenure.
Hmm. Yeah. So I want to kind of switch gears here and talk about the primary problem,
Yep.
which is the fragmentation of AI.
Yeah.
I mean, AI is everywhere. It's built into every platform. If a platform doesn't have AI, they're rolling it out.
Yep.
So there's a lot of bolt-on tools. There's a lot of ways to do data entry.
Yep.
But I think there's a lot of issues that then come along with AI everywhere,
Yes.
such as data duplication,
Yep.
incorrect data, mismatched data.
Mhm.
There can be recruiter distrust of that data and
Yes.
just distrust of data in general. And it
Yes.
doesn't matter what industry you're a part of. So, talk to us a little bit about AI fragmentation and how are we able to tackle that?
Well, I think your last point in distrust is the most important because
Hmm.
once there is distrust in the technology or in the solution or in the automation, it's really difficult to reel that back.
That's where buy in goes down the drain.
It does. And we've talked about the previous episode.
Hmm.
We don't need their approval, we need their buy in. And that comes back to trust. And so as we evaluate the shiny objects, the new tools, we have to realize that not every new tool is going to add capability. It can create complexity and more risk. We were talking about governance and bias just a few minutes ago. When we look at the data, the integrity or the quality of the data, that duplicate data entry is not a workflow issue, I would say. It comes back to your question about architecture. It's an architecture issue. A lot of us may think it's a workflow issue or a training issue, but it's not. It really
It goes even deeper than that.
it does, because when the systems disagree, to your point about the bolt on, and this is where recruitment technology is going. It is going to a singular source, systems that have a very lightweight front end, but a very robust back end that have bidirectional API integration capabilities. When those systems disagree, when they're not talking to each other, when they're not integrated appropriately, when they're broken, or they're constantly breaking, guess what happens? Recruiters stop trusting all of it. We stop trusting all of it. And so all of a sudden you have this fragmentation and it just widens. It kills adoption faster than poor features, faster than poor use, faster than poor usability functionality. That fragmentation will kill adoption faster than anything.
And unfortunately, when that does happen and there's poor architecture or infrastructure and AI workflows break as a result, I think some of that gets passed on to the candidate, and some of that gets passed on to the actual experience for our clients and candidates.
Yep.
And vice versa in other industries. So that's all the more reason it's important to keep your data clean.
That's right.
To have proper architecture so that you don't have duplicated data and candidates aren't getting multiple outreaches when they should have only gotten one,
That's right. Bill, and I will also say that's why you've seen the growth of companies like Sourcewell that does data refresh, Woo that does data refresh, Acadian is a more recent one. So just off the top of my head, there's 3 companies that specifically work in recruitment technology that work on data refresh because of the duplication that exists. And it's not just on the candidate side. It's also on the client and the contact side. And systems that promise its ability to detect duplication, I think most of us in the industry would say they're pretty bad at it.
Well, when your data's all messed up, it really makes you not want to mess with that data or use that data, right?
Again.
Especially when it comes to marketing outreach and lists and candidate outreach. Like if you feel like I've sent so much to these people, I don't even know who I'm really sending it to.
Right. Well, again, bad data equals bad AI.
Yeah,
and
AI can amplify that.
That's right. And then data that's entered twice is data that no one believes, John.
Oh my goodness. If I go and I try to put somebody into an ATS and I see that they have a company, and when I go to create a profile, there's 6 companies, all of the same name or slightly different. It's like, well, where do I put them?
Right.
Well, I don't know right now, so I'm not going to even put them in there.
Right.
Why risk making another?
If you want to merge them together, are you merging them onto the right record? Is that historical data from those previous records carrying over? So it's just almost this waterfall trickle down
Questions.
Yes, that happens.
And then if I have questions, I don't do anything.
That's right.
Right. Or if I do, then I accept the risk of making a mistake.
That's right.
So as you can see, and that's why I think there's organizations like Sourcewell exist is in data cleanup or data refreshing, because it's a huge problem. It's also a complex problem.
It is.
And it's difficult for any one organization to really deal with that internally.
And you cannot throw a human at it.
No, absolutely not. And okay, so this is where we get into problems with tool first decisions. And I think this goes back to the shiny object.
It does.
This is where you make a decision by adding a tool because you think this tool is going to solve your problem, when you don't realize that problem is tied to something much deeper.
Yes.
Right. And then that just sets that tool up for failure. So we look at different features, and I've been guilty of this where I'm like, man, I'd really like these features, but that's not actually gonna fix my ecosystem.
No.
Right. Demo bias.
Yes.
Right. Or I think this is where people can really sell something.
That's right.
We
learned that from Ray in our next tier conversation with Ray Culver, global managing director for Talent Partners. He talked about there's some really good salesmen out there. I know a lot of them.
Oh my gosh. That's where the money is.
That's right.
Roadmap promises versus reality. Okay. So over promising.
Yep.
Right. And it does not match what the actual output is. So, most organizations, they really don't have an AI problem so much as it really comes down to data discipline. And I can expose that.
It can.
In a big way.
And then it can use that negatively. I think that's the other component to it. And We've talked about demos a good bit. I don't want to go too far into it, but the reality is demos can show you possibility.
They do.
They show possibility. You're not really you may be looking under the hood at the engine, but you're not inspecting every connection. And I think what we've realized is that while it may show possibility, it does not show what I would call production reality or return on investment.
Mhm.
We buy on features without architecture. And I think that means that we are going to be buying future rework as well, because it's about fixing these problems that we've created because we've bought on a feature. And one of the things we talk about here, and we do training through Henna Pryor, who has 5 messaging mistakes for
Mhm.
sales messaging. And one of those mistakes is we sell on features, not benefits.
Hmm.
And so I think that's something that we have to think about is what's the feature
Mhm.
and then what's the benefit? What are those two areas for us as we look into it? And those roadmaps that we have to create don't run our business. They don't. We can architect the roadmap. We can have these awesome diagrams, but at the end of the day, the business is run by our people and by our tech stack.
I think more times than not, you're going to fall behind on your roadmap. It's just bound to happen, right?
You
It's
will.
tough to stay on top of that, and things happen,
They do.
right? It's like you just said, the business does not is not run by a roadmap. It's there's all sorts of other factors that come into play, so you have to be a little careful with that.
You do. And we talked about in the last episode that the constant context switching, constant tab
Mhm.
switching is the silent killer of productivity.
Yeah.
I would say bad data is the silent killer of AI performance. So, again, this episode is centered around the importance of not only the architecture of your environment and how you integrate that into your full ecosystem, your ATS, your CRM, but also the quality of your data, how much that matters when you're looking at innovation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the solution here because we've talked about all these problems. We've talked about, the devastation of poor architecture behind AI. And then
That's right.
people are probably wondering to themselves, well, what do I do? And I think that's the thing. It's like, well, if a new tool isn't going to fix this and I have to look deeper and I have to really look at the roots of it, then where do I start?
Yes.
So we need an operating model, Rob.
Okay.
Okay. We need a framework that we can pass along.
Yes.
So let's talk about that framework a little bit. Why don't you run us through that?
Okay. So, first of all, you have to have one system of record. One. The reason why I say that, and I was trained very early on,
Mm-hmm.
way back when I used to input data in an Access database. Look that up, kids. Access database. If it is not in your system, if it's not in your ATS, if it's not in your CRM, it didn't happen. It doesn't exist. So, unless you're willing to input that data and document that activity and document that conversation, document that communication, then you don't have a whole or a realistic source of truth. The next, and we talked about this a good bit, embedded intelligence. And by embedded intelligence, AI isn't just embedded in your workflow, it has to become optional, and optional tools get ignored. So that's a hard pill to swallow. If it isn't embedded in your workflow, it becomes optional. And we've talked about adoption over enforcement. We want them to adopt over us enforcing that adoption, but we also don't want to make significant investments in technology and that gets ignored. A few minutes ago, we were just talking about bolt-on AI. And so API first decisions are very important to us. It's not just a tech decision, it's a scalability decision. And as I was referring to, a lighter weight, more front end with a robust bidirectional API backend that we can bolt on or bolt in different pieces of technology into a singular system is table stakes, is critical for us.
Yeah, and then you get real time data instead of having to manually put anything in or it's delayed. It's real time.
Correct. And we're not there yet, but we're working towards
Yeah,
that.
that's
That-
ideal.
It's an evolution. And
Mhm.
so I think the other thing that we really try to do, and this is that operating model, is have clarity over where technology has the responsibility and then where our people have the
Yeah,
responsibility.
human in the loop.
Where does that
Human-
handoff happen?
Human decision making,
Correct.
shortlisting, offers, final evaluations.
Yes. And again, as I said, we here use AI as decision support, not decision authority. And so to double down on that, I would say AI should reduce decisions, not create new ones. And that in and of itself gives us more insight into predicting outcomes, measuring success, creating a return.
Yeah, 1,000 resumes, 5 top candidates.
3 submitted to the client, 2 interviewed, and
There
an
you go.
offer,
Yeah,
right? I mean, that
absolutely.
if it were only that easy, John.
If only, but in an ideal world, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about scaling without breaking trust
Yep.
because, as we said, I think that trust factor is one of the most damaging things to AI and AI adoption. And so, how do we scale AI while preserving that trust?
I think the first one is AI that writes versus AI that recommends. And what I mean by that is that AI that recommends builds trust. AI that acts without context erodes it. It
Mm,
takes it away.
sure.
That's that hallucination aspect. That's giving me false positives, false narratives, incorrect answers, responses. I think those are the things that we look for. We want to be able to trust it, but we also know we've got to take it at face value. It requires human oversight. It
Yeah.
just does. Recommend, and we build trust.
Hmm.
Act without context, and you erode it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, if I ask a robot to write for me,
Mhm.
it's going to sound like a robot,
Correct, as it should,
as it should, but that's not necessarily what I'm going for.
unless you tell it to sound like Jonathan Palombo,
Even if you
marketing
tell
communications
no,
manager.
even if you tell it to sound like someone, anything, if you tell it to have this tone of voice or that tone of voice, I'm telling you, it still is going to sound like a robot because it can't be anything else. So you have to write, you have to humanize,
Yep.
right? And honestly, I don't even ask, and I know this is a little off topic, but I think some of the best advice I've heard is don't ask it to write for you.
Mhm.
Ask it for feedback.
Ooh, I
Yeah.
like it. That's powerful.
And I was like, wow, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to make mistakes actually. That's the whole thing. It doesn't make mistakes. So even mistakes on purpose can humanize something. Now this is obviously in the context of writing, but I think to your point,
But I think that goes into the topic of
huh?
scaling without breaking trust.
Right.
So if you're bringing visibility to your mistakes by asking it to review and identify conflicts or contextual issues, I think that builds a
Mhm.
greater adoption and a higher usage. And the reason why I say that is because you're really kind of bridging that gap between you and the intelligence.
I think I heard somewhere uh, that AI should not be artificial intelligence. It should be like assistive intelligence.
Ooh, yeah.
Right?
Hmm.
Because that's what it's ultimately doing. It's helping you make decisions. It's, synchronizing data and
Hmm.
and giving you summaries and doing all these things and sourcing, but it's not going to do your job for you.
Right.
So it empowers you, but I think that's I love that phrase, and I think it's a great mindset to have when you're dealing with AI and
Hmm.
how your expectation of how it should help and how it should operate within your systems, within
Right.
your ecosystem, within your ATS, within your CRM.
I think too, it comes back to how important the testing and the change management aspect is as well. And the reason why I say that, and we've talked about resistance, we've talked about friction, but we don't necessarily resist the technology or the AI. We resist losing control without there being transparency. And we've talked about why I think the sourcing function in recruitment is one that is definitely heading towards the direction of automation or like a true talent orchestrator because it is administrative, but there are still a lot of recruiters that we know that love that pursuit of writing Boolean strings that are 3 paragraphs long and seeing the results that they get. Reality is automation and AI should be doing that for them more so now than ever. And then they test and prompt and tweak and ask for feedback and where there are issues or errors along the way.
Yeah, it's like our roles have changed. It's the things we do to tweak, to improve, to iterate,
Yes.
and your results become better.
But here's why, John. We've been trained and taught our entire lives about our ability to know the answer. And right now, the shift that we have in society is our ability to ask the question is more powerful now than it is for our ability to have the answer.
Wow, that's powerful.
So, with that though, when we think about closing out the breaking trust, accountability doesn't disappear with AI, it becomes more important.
I think that's one of the most challenging things about AI.
Yes,
And this
accountability.
is everywhere. I mean,
Yes.
yes, recruiters, yes, client services, this industry in general. But even I feel this, right? It's like if AI is going to do something for me,
Yeah.
then why should I be trying to do it better?
Yeah.
Or, it's just like it feels like it removes it from you.
It does.
It's like I used to be expected to do XYZ, but now I don't even need to.
Yeah. What do they do with that new capacity?
Right.
What do they do with that time that they got
It
back?
goes somewhere.
It goes
It's
somewhere.
like money, right? The more
Ab-
money you make, that money
Absolutely.
tends to go
It
somewhere.
does. It goes somewhere.
Yeah, right. Usually more bills.
It's not what we want.
Yeah, man. How about assisted AI? Recommendation based.
I think I liked that concept, but when I think about it further, I still come back to there needs to be a handoff. And intelligence can get us to a point. Assisted intelligence, if we want to go down that path, can get us to a point. But I know what we're doing here at Tier 4 Group, and we've doubled down on our people. We've made equal investments in people and technology.
There's a duality to that.
There is, and I think when we look at, the differentiation that's given us, it's created capacity, but it's also created multiplication.
Well, wouldn't you say that investment in tools and technology is an investment in your people, though?
It's both.
Yeah.
It's both.
Yeah.
It is. It's an investment in the
At the
business
end of the
and in
day.
the people,
Yeah.
right? It truly is both, and so, when we start to look at, like, closing this out and the importance of architecture, it's going to be features every time. Getting that right. That roadmap is important, but getting your architecture as you work through the implementation, like how important that is, it can't be understated. If you listen to anything here from me, architecture beats features every single time. It just is going to.
Okay. So if somebody, first of all, let's just take that framework for a second. Okay.
Yep.
Let's reiterate it in simplest terms as possible.
Okay.
If someone's listening to this, give us that framework.
Yep.
What can someone do today
Yep.
to get their architecture right?
Well, first, it is your integration is not an IT task, it's a business strategy. So, as you think about the business and their involvement with technology, those use cases, having those clearly defined use cases, having discipline to know what good looks like, what do you believe can be successful in your environment, in your organization, knowing the temperature of your team to take on or embrace another tool to completely do a lift and shift. I think it comes back to maturity as well. Maturity of your organization, maturity of your team, maturity of your technology. It's not measured by how many tools that you have in your environment. It's measured by how they're going to work together. How do they integrate? How are the automations in those integrations? How quality is the data entry that's happening? Is there duplication? Is there not? How can we leverage what's being inputted? So I would say you do not scale AI by adding tools. You scale it by strengthening your system. And that system is your ATS, your CRM, but also your people.
Yeah, absolutely. So stage one, tool adoption.
Yep.
Stage two, integration. Stage three,
discipline.
Embedded intelligence.
Yes, embedded intelligence.
Stage four, predictive hiring.
Yeah, predictive hiring.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, hey, this was a really great conversation.
Yeah. Went in a couple different directions, but I think it's a good
Sure did.
continuation of what we've been talking about. We talk about the volume game is over, what we're doing to combat candidate fraud, the AI adoption cliff that has been real, and then constant context switching. We think about how important it is to have architecture over features for your AI that lives inside of your ATS or it doesn't count. And, I think a good close here is that AI isn't a feature you turn on. It's a capability that you design into your architecture. And if it's not inside of your ATS, it does not exist.
That's right. If AI is not in your ATS, it doesn't count.
It doesn't count. It doesn't exist. It didn't happen.
Well, that's a great place to leave it. Rob, thank you so much.
Yeah, I would like to just tell everyone that today's Tech Talks is brought to you by Tier 4 Group. We are a woman-owned and diversity certified IT and technology adjacent talent acquisition and workforce management solutions firm. We like to say that we balance our technology and automation with our people to find the right individuals for your organization.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Bye.